This is Barbara Ellistad with Mesquite Local Newspaper, and we're here today with Al Litman, who is running for City Council in the upcoming 2011 elections. Welcome, Al.
Thank you.
Could you give us a short synopsis of your background?
Background-wise, growing up in Duluth, Minnesota, my parents had a retail business for a number of years. I worked in the retail field for quite a few years while I was going to college. Moved to California, of course, to get away from the cold winters in Minnesota, and spent 30 years in California. The greatest percentage of that time in the public education field. However, the last 10 years, I changed fields completely and went into the automotive service business, which I opened up on my own, starting with 2 employees, and by the time I sold it 10 years later, I had 9 full-time employees, and we were probably the largest auto service business of its type in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles.
That is quite a change.
Prior to all of that, of course, I had my stint in the Army. I served in Vietnam, 1966 and 1967. Again, came back and went into public education, where I remained quite a few years. Very quickly, I retired from the automotive business, moved to Hawaii, spent 10 years, got bored after 5 years, and decided it was time to go to work. Using my background, I was a private contractor in the mental health field, and did so until it was time to retire again, and I moved to Mesquite, Nevada.
Okay. Tell us briefly why you want to be elected to the Mesquite City Council.
I know that I can make a difference in Mesquite. I study the issues carefully. I'm a critical thinker, and I know once I'm there that I can make some positive changes to our community. And that's basically the reason I want to go in. I know I can do something.
Okay. What is your opinion of the relationship between the business community and City Hall, and how would you improve it?
To start with, it isn't all that bad as it's made out to be, but it does need to be improved. There's always red tape and bureaucracy that gets in the way of many of the small businesses in Mesquite, and as we know, Mesquite is made up of small businesses. The relationship has to be improved. It needs to be more interaction between the city officials, and the businesses that exist in Mesquite if we're going to keep everybody happy.
Can you give us some specifics on how you would improve it? Would that be the sign code? Would that be the access up and down the boulevards? Any specific ideas?
To start with, the sign code does need to be modified. I know it's gone both ends of the pendulum, from a very strict sign code to right now virtually no sign code. The city is working, of course, on plans to implement a better sign code, which I've not seen. The boulevards, now we have another issue on our hands, because it's an expensive venture to start cutting up the boulevards again. And as I remember, they were saying a number of years ago when they did all this, that they weren't going to tear up the streets. Yes, it's very difficult to get into some of the businesses. I find myself going in circles occasionally trying to figure out how to get into the right place. It does have to be addressed to some degree, but I think there's far more pressing issues because so many of the businesses that were along Mesquite Boulevard are empty, as well as Pioneers. So it doesn't matter too much to get in if there's nothing there to get into.
Okay, which leads me kind of into the next question. What type of new businesses would you be in most favor of coming into Mesquite, and how would you draw them into the city?
Okay, to start with, all the statistics tell us that the United States operates more on small business than anything else. We hear about big corporations, but they're not coming to Mesquite, at least not right now. So we have to concentrate on getting small business here, and of course retaining what we've got. So how do we get small business into Mesquite? We've heard a lot of people talk about we're going to do it, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. Okay. I don't like to reinvent what's already been done. And I did some studies on facilities, small towns back east that are facing the same situation as Mesquite. Empty storefronts wherever you go. 2 of the communities I've looked at, one is Poughkeepsie, New York, and another is Albany, New York suburbs, have gotten together and done block grant funding to bring in businesses that are deemed necessary to help the community, where they can bring up the tax base as well as bring in some employment. And they are working with a rent subsidy program through block grants that is very successful. Now they're expanding it into the more commercial areas because they're sitting with warehouses and business, big operations that are sitting vacant and have done so for years. And as we know, if they sit vacant, they bring in nothing. There's no tax dollars brought in, there's no rent brought in, and there's no employment. This has been accomplished. We can do the exact same thing in Mesquite. We're no different.
That's quite an innovative idea. What kind of economic base, broad base, do you think fits Mesquite best?
Mesquite needs more than what it has to start with. The broad base of casinos, which we have right now, and recreation through golf is great when the economy is booming. When the economy is not booming, we have nowhere to turn. We can't turn to the small businesses because they've been so dependent upon the existing two main things in town here, which is the tourism and the casino industry, both which are fine industries. However, I lived in a community when tourism went down, and we watched everything else go with it, and that's what's occurred here, as well as across the country. We need more small businesses in Mesquite. And again, I defer back to a well-organized plan where we screen who wants to come into town. We set up a rent subsidy program. And by the way, other numbers tell me that the main reason small businesses fail are initial undercapitalization, primarily brought about because not only don't they have a good business plan, but by the time they pay that first month's rent, that last month's rent, that security deposit, and stock their shelves, most of them are hanging on for dear life. We've seen it happen time and time again here. The ideas are good, they run out of money. So we need to come up with a program, like I mentioned earlier, where we have some subsidies, where these companies come in with a little more solid footing and a little idea that, yes, they can survive if they get past the first year. Because we know most small businesses fail within the first 5 years, especially restaurant businesses, which are lucky to make 1 year. And again, due to undercapitalization.
Okay. If it's necessary to reduce expenses in the city budget, and it looks like it's going to be based on the information we're getting from Carson City on the tax cuts, what area or areas would you first consider for cutting in the Mesquite budget?
Well, I looked over, unfortunately the budget's going to be taken care of before the election is finalized. But so we have to look again at the future from there. But in the meantime, I've identified, and I will not name the positions, 11 possible positions within the city, within various departments, that could probably be eliminated. Now, is it an absolute essential thing to have these positions? Maybe and maybe not. When the times are tough, and they are tough as we know, they may have to go, but not any one particular area. I think everybody is up for cuts, as the governor has talked about, and as every governor across the country literally has talked about. We've got to tighten our belts, and somebody is going to be hurt. We know this, and it's the sad part of doing business in a rough economy.
Okay. What are your thoughts about the Lincoln County annexation on the north side of the city?
I have very mixed feelings about Lincoln County right now. As I'm sure most of the people know, Lincoln County has filed a lawsuit against us over this very issue right now, which has been filed in court, and it's probably going to sit there for a while before we come up with a decision. I'm holding back a little bit till, number one, I see the legality of what Mesquite has done, because there's nothing in the NRS statutes that said you could or couldn't do this, which poses a real dilemma. We're going ahead with an annexation, and we may not be able to succeed with it. The final results, and again, you have to look out, way out in the future, because there's not going to be any development in that area of Lincoln County for a number of years to come because of the economy. We've got to take a firm look and see how it will benefit Mesquite. If it doesn't benefit us, why do it?
Okay.
It may benefit Lincoln County, but we're not Lincoln County. And again, with the times the way they are, money just can't be dropped everywhere. and ideas can't be thrown out because it comes back to haunt us later.